Hey crew, I'm Lex. Today it's time for something a little bit different. Someone on Twitter mentioned they'd seen some of these guys in a game store in Canada, and I asked them if they'd be able to send it over, and they said yes. Now I, once again in my life, have a second edition Tyranid Carnifex. I used to have one way back in the day when I was playing second ed, but that's lost to time. There's bits of it somewhere in a bits box. This is a brand new fresh one, which is really surprising. Living in New Zealand, we got all our stuff from the UK, but according to this is a made in the USA product. So either they just slapped this on for legal reasons, or they were casting in the States as well as in Britain, which is super interesting. Most 40k boxes were about the size for most sort of monstrous creatures, and about half that size for the plastic squads. Metal and plastic squads used to be about the same size box. So I might see if I can take off this American sticker and post a picture of it later. Locations of Games Workshop over the world, circa 92. And that's the back of the box. I've got it in French, German, Spanish. And there are the assembly instructions. So nice simple model, only about 9 parts. And yeah, what's the date on this? Do we have a copyright date? 1997. What? There we go. So yeah, let's wreck this Minton box miniature by pulling it open. Oh, that crinkling plastic. We'll leave that in there. People love crinkling plastic, right? And that is so cool. Oh, a world of games. Oh, so this was really rattly. When it came through the mail, and looking in the box here, you can see where all the metal's just like been slamming up against cardboard for years, each time someone else has picked it up. So a lot of old metal models used to come in these plastic containers. If you check out the old How to Build Terrain books from Games Workshop, they actually use this specific polystyrene to build certain bits of terrain. So that terrain you can't really build without the stuff anymore, which is really sad. So if you happen to own this gem, How to Make Wargames Terrain, on page 69, nice, you'll see scenery made out of these. I can now make a part of one of these. Maybe I can do that one. Maybe I could get away with that. So let's see, we've got top half and bottom half of the torso, hip joint, 2 leggies, and 4 claws. So back in the day, there we go. It used to be like a cage photo with old Tyranids. It was great. Anyway, and then we've got the old square monstrous faces. So if it was a greater demon or a Carnifex or an avatar, they all came on these, which are 40 by 40. You'd basically get out your scalpel or craft knife and poke it through there and then score it out from the other side. And that's what that little nubbin on the back of the foot's for. Plug in there from the other side. Whoop. So yeah, that's a 97 second edition Carnifex, or Screaming Killer as they used to be called. A world of hobby games. So this art looks really third ed rather than second. Maybe it was that in-between sort of period. Yeah, it is. So this was obviously packaged much later in the game than when they originally came out. Oh, look, it's how to assemble your miniatures. And it says pin them. And if you've ever pinned metal, you know it's a pain. It's such a hassle. So yeah, that's really cool. Awesome bit of polystyrene, which is useful for certain bits of terrain. Or the part, there's lugs there, would sit into those. There's always that gnarly gap on mine as well. Back in the olden days. Oh, and there's extra in there. And then you'd want to pin the hip on there, pin the legs, and these would basically just drop into any of those, so you could pose really limited posing. You could pose the little scythe arms. They're quite a bit more menacing with all those scything talons put on, even temporarily. Oh no, I'm going to get eaten because I'm a limiter. Oh, I'm sad. So I managed to get the sticker off the side. Handcrafted in fine pewter, this model is not a toy and not intended for sale for children under 12 years of age. Product code 0378, made in the USA. And that's our barcode, 0837 460 37806. So like I mentioned, this was bought from Canada, shipped all the way over to me. And when you live in New Zealand, you usually get stuff from Britain, if it's this sort of time frame. And all the copyrights here are for Britain, different barcode, made in the UK. So whether they were making these in Britain, shipping them to US and just slapping a sticker on them, that seems a bit dubious. It would have been also cheaper to probably produce in the US. It also means there'd be molds potentially left in the US. The other interesting thing is this made in the USA date sticker saying July 2000. So at that point, third edition had already been released. And if we look at the third edition codex, right down here, data copyright is 2001. So these guys were being produced right up until the end of the line, where they got replaced with a smiley fix or a grin fix. There we go. There's old one eye. And those were the replacement Carnifex models. So quite a bit different from what we have today. So yeah, I just found that was really interesting. That's super hard to read because I wasn't able to get it all off. Easier to read through the camera though. So not recommended for children under the age of 36 months, contains small parts, legal jargon. So yeah, if you're a 3-year-old in Britain, you can handle your metal miniatures. If you're from the USA, you have to be 12. Whilst I was filming this, another YouTuber who does amazing content, Eons of Battle, I'll put the link in the thing. They do this awesome video on an old orc runt herd, and they mention that Citadel miniatures produced in the US were only produced in the early 80s. Going through the Lost Minis wiki, it lists Citadel Miniatures US was set up in 1981. And then 1984 started trading as Rail Panther imports. So potentially that happened. And then in 2000, they were still producing them. It seems a little bit weird. It's really interesting. I've checked quickly, not very thoroughly, some other websites, and there's not much about the US production of Citadel and Games Workshop miniatures. So it's just a curiosity. If you're interested in Eons of Battle's video, I'll chuck that down in the description, and it's well worth a look. So one thing which modern Tyranids just don't do, and one of the things that really attracted me to Tyranids back in the day was all their exposed organs. So there's an old story from Codex Space Wolves, or White Dwarf from Codex Space Wolves came out, and it talks about how Tyranid warriors have these guts just pulsing and throbbing, and it's a real body horror sort of image. And that's one of the things that originally wanted me to collect Tyranids. Tyranid warriors used to have the same sort of exposed rib cage with visible guts and stuff, and then when they launched the new Tyranid metal warriors as opposed to the old plastics, they went away with that. And it's all gone now. You have to have all your carapace enclosing your soft bits, and so that was the appeal. Modern Tyranids are cool and all, but they just don't ring the same sort of. They're just not as cool as the old ones. And there's some rambling and why I don't play Tyranids anymore as much as I do want to. Gnarly gribblies like this that want me to go back to that old aesthetic. It doesn't make sense. Why would you have your living battering ram, toughest guy with exposed organs? It's dumb, but it's really cool aesthetically. So concept-wise, boo. Looks awesome, yeah. So we've got the old Tyranid Codex here, along with the box art they provide. They did do an alternate paint job on the Carnifex, or two. So that one with the big blue head, which was, I think, from the core rulebook, and there we go. So there were 3 Carnifexes in the Citadel studio at one point. Oh, 4! That's even better. So there was that blue-head one, which is from the second ed rulebook, and looks like it has tattoos. And then there's the one in the box, which is this guy. There's this one, and there's this guy here. Another quick oddity was It looks like they had only 5 Tyranid warriors, because most of the pictures you've got these 3 guys and these 2 guys. It's super weird. So following the box art, these are your top left and right sides, and these are your bottom left and right sides. If you look at some awesome pictures, like if you go on Twitter, you know Leaky Cheese, great YouTuber. He's got a brood of carnifexes, all these old guys, put in really dynamic poses, and that shows the sort of range of poses you can get out of such a simple mini. I'll post up a picture here. It's on Twitter, so it's kind of a pain to find, but if you Google Carnifex second end, you can usually find it. So I'll put that picture up here. Ooh. So there he is with slightly saggy sides. Oh, he's got a problem. That's what an assembled Carnifex would look like besides the Space Marine. And there is a bit of scale creep with these guys, but it's a general sort of idea. Looking at the Carnifex here, done some green stuff to clean up some of the gaps on there, which the arms will hide. Big gap in the face, and that hip joint going up into the slot required a lot of filing. Like, it was quite a bit longer than the hole was deep, quite a bit of filing to actually get it to fit nice and snug. And before I get this guy painted, I'll green stuff in the legs there, and you can tell the casts we're getting to the end of the life because we've got a big dent in here from either the mold having some damage or the metal knot. There was an impurity there which caused it. There was another gap just in the back there, and we've got a photo I'll post up. I've just green stuffed in there and just added some texture. That's basically a mostly assembled second Ed Carnifex. I mentioned the story from the Space Wolf second Ed Codex. I managed to track it down. A friend from university back in the way back days, Paul, he has a copy of the second Ed Space Wolf's Codex. So I put out a call on Facebook if anyone had it. He did. He sent me through some photos, and I'll put up a picture of the text here because the descriptions of the Tyranids are really different. The Tyranid warriors they describe as they looked like dinosaurs. Their heads were large and bulged back, horny carapaces protecting a large brain case. The ribs were outside their bodies, like the exoskeleton of an insect. Internal organs were clearly visible. Ragnar saw lungs pulse with breath, and exposed hearts beat beneath them. Each monster had 4 muscular arms, 2 of which terminated in long claws, the other 2 of which clutched strange fleshy rifles or wicked-looking blades. Long legs ended in hoofs, and raised them over twice Ragnar's height. A stinger curled between their legs. The shape of the creature was all organic curves and exposed muscles. It reminded him of gene stealers, but he recognized them as something even worse, Tyranid hive warriors. That's what I loved about them, all meaty, so much more meatier and body horror than they are now. And then for the Carnifex itself, there's the description of gene stealers, 4-armed razor-clawed monstrosities flanked by a beast that dwarfed the biggest Tyranid hive warrior. In some ways, it resembled the gene stealer. It had a similar acid-dripping maw and a similar insectile head, but it was massive, taller than a hive warrior and far more bulky. It had 4 enormous chitinous razor claws, great sickles of bone and cartilage. Held between its claws was a flickering ball of blue plasma. That's pretty groovy. And then the giant was near. Its scent was overpowering. He could hear its metronome pulse of its huge heart. Its blood dripped down on him. In his mind's eye, he pictured those giant sides rising and descending. Ragnar's vision cleared and looked up into the face of nightmare and lunacy. Mighty shark-like jaws dripped with slimy saliva. Mad eyes filled with hate and bloodlust gazed into his own. The scythe claws slick with red blood were raised high. This is all really great sort of text. It was done by Bill King, possibly the same William King that's penned a lot of Space Wolves fiction. Unfortunately, the short story has no title. It's just a 5-page short story from the Codex, which is amazing. So I might see if I can find some way to get it on screen because there's a lot of text and on a screen it's going to be a bit hard to read. But we'll try our best there. So thanks for Paul for setting us up with that and letting me read out those descriptions. Again, this is all copyright Games Workshop, so there's some IP there, but it's used for commentary and education, so I should be covered under copyright law. Awesome. So that's me. That's a second edition Tyranid Carnifex. Thanks for watching. Have a great month. Ciao. Bye.